I'm going to show you guys how to repair a keyboard on a MacBook that was the result of vandalism. This is owned by an institution and probably sees about 10 to 15 different users each day, some with too much time in their hands. So normally this would call for a whole new top case. And this isn't such a big problem on these older MacBooks which have replaceable top cases just by popping out a few screws. But it's an even bigger problem on some of the newer models where the top case is most of the entire MacBook's body. For example, like this 15-inch MacBook Pro. In this case, the student not only ripped the key off, but he also ripped off the rubber dome. And I'm filming this with an iPhone, so I apologize if this isn't working out so good. So there's a procedure that I've come up with, and I don't know if anyone else is out there doing this, but I came up with this procedure because I had about 50 defective keyboards with various problems, from liquid spills to missing rubber domes. And I had to repair a bunch of machines, and the parts hadn't come in yet to put in new top cases. So this was kind of an emergency thing that I started using as a way to fix all of them, because it works so well. There's a couple of tools you need. You're going to need a fresh, unopened razor blade, tweezers, and you're going to need some adhesive. I've been doing this kind of work for about 10 or more years, so I'm no stranger to vandalized equipment, and it seems to be pretty common these days, especially in educational institutions. So sometimes you have to kind of make do with what you have, and that's one of these situations. I'm going to put my phone there here while I open the razor blade. Alright, so here's what you got to do. Number one, you have to have a donor keyboard that matches the exact layout of the one that you're fixing. This keyboard is the last generation MacBook keyboard for the non-unibody models. And Apple used about 3 completely different keyboards, and they are not the keys and scissor frames are not intercompatible. So you've got to make sure the keyboard is of the same generation that you're repairing. And I just happen to have one right here. So the first thing you need to do is cut away at the... this is actually very hard to see on the phone. I'm going to try to zoom in. There we go. So what you want to do is cut away as little as possible from the old. So to start this repair, we have to first prepare the keyboard that's being repaired for the job. What you've got to do is cut away at the Mylar layer here, where the actual rubber dome was originally bonded to. And you want to cut away as little as possible. You want to make sure that you're getting just enough material out of the way to make this repair doable. And this is what I recommend. I'm going to actually mark this with a pen so you can see where I'm cutting. We're going to cut here. Let's try using a marker. I don't have one here. Oh, yeah, I got a green one. There we go. We're going to cut here, here, and here. Once you make those 3 incisions, actually 5 incisions, this whole section of Mylar will be free to be removed. Okay? And you want to cut, again, as little as possible. So you want your cuts to be perfect and precise, which is why a brand new razor blade is required. And like I said, I've done dozens of these repairs just like this because I'm trying to conserve my costs. My budget is only so much every year, so I want to conserve my costs and I want to make the most out of all the componentry that I have. So we want to pull this off just like so. Okay. Now we have a good surface in which to mount the new rubber dome. The next step is we want to harvest the donor component, which is this entire rubber dome assembly. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, let's say you have a defective F2 dome, but you have the key, or you have a key in a let's say you just have the key. You can swap any one of these top row keys or dome assemblies into the repaired keyboard. So what you've got to do is cut as much material off as you can, because you want to make sure that you have enough to make this transplant possible. So we're going to cut away here, just like we did on the other one. We want to cut around it, but as much as we can, so that we have enough material to graft onto the old keyboard. Okay. So once we have that liberated, we can take the tweezers. That cut didn't go in too far. Just like that. Alright. Okay. Doing this repair has so far saved my department approximately $1,200 over the past couple of years. What happened was I bought a whole bunch of used keyboards to get the process started, and it's not coming out free here. I started buying up used keyboards off eBay to repair these machines that were broken, and then and I saved all the old ones for the keycaps, because we keep getting keycaps ripped off. And then they started doing this crap. So luckily I saved all my old keyboards, and I have replacement domes, and I have replacement key assemblies, which is really good to have. Alright, next thing we need to do, because this idiot actually bent this down a little bit, so we're going to fix that while we have it all apart. I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver, but I don't have one in this toolkit. I have to grab it. So here we go. I need to grab my flat blade. So we need to bend this up so that it will accept a key. There we go. But I'm not exaggerating when I say that this sort of thing happens all the time here. So I have to keep a huge inventory of scrap keyboards just for this reason. So the first thing you want to do is make sure everything lines up. You're going to take your tweezers and kind of test fit your graft and make sure that it lines up perfectly. Once you have the orientation and everything squared away, it's time for the adhesive. I like to use Loctite super glue, but any super glue will work. Anything that's designed to work with plastics. There we go. Okay, you don't need a lot, just a little bit. A little goes a long way. And what you're going to do is you're going to apply a little bit of glue to the we're going to apply it first to the to the new dome here, and we're just going to touch the tip. That's too much. We can want to apply it to the dome first because we have plenty of spare domes, and That's about what you want right there. Just a little bit on there. And now put the dome upside down and grasp it with your tweezers. Just like so, before the glue completely dries. And then you're going to place it ever so gently in place. And we're only applying the glue to the larger tab on the back side here, where the hinge is. What that does is it keeps the part in place, but it prevents the glue from getting into the switch assembly, which would prevent it from ever working again. Remember, this glue melts plastic. That's how it works. So keep that in mind when you're making this repair. Okay, now we're going to cap our glue. The only reason a user would do something like this is because they want to cause damage. It is clearly vandalism. If a key falls off, it can happen accidentally. The user's a thread could get caught under the key from their sleeve and rip the key off. That can happen. Always give people the benefit of the doubt. But when they start ripping off the domes, they're trying to cause damage. And it's my job to repair the damage in a way that makes sense, keeps our costs down, and in this case, I have enough spare parts to make this happen. In fact, I have enough to last me until the rest of these laptops are taken out of service, which will be in about a year or two. Then we want to get our scissor frame assembly back in place. We're going to bend these tabs in so that it firmly locks in. Sorry about the camera work there. And then you want to use your tweezers if you really want to be a perfectionist, and make sure that the scissor frame can go up and down freely so that the key can travel. Then you're going to take your replacement key, lock it in, just like that. Now we're going to power it on and test it. While the machine's powering up, we'll talk a little bit about this particular model and its common issues. Now, I have serviced a fleet of these, which is approximately, I think we have about 300 of these laptops, and I've been maintaining these since they were brand new under warranty. And I will tell you that this particular model of MacBook Pro has its quirks. The earlier ones had dozens of issues relating to the moving problem. Luckily, we didn't have any of those. They suffered a lot of motherboard failures early on. But for the most part, I see two things going wrong with these laptops on a regular basis. Three, if you count the keycap removal and vandalism. But I see hard drive failures all the time, especially the original Hitachi 80 gigs. I think by now I've probably replaced about 200 of those easily out of the 300. I do see screen failures every so often, but one of the biggest problems I see are the backlight cables, which are right about here. The backlight cables on these tend to fail after a couple of years of use. I've had to replace dozens of those. Motherboard failures do occur. It's sporadic though. It's not like I have a pattern of these going bad on me. These are used pretty heavily. You know, these actually all have the typical broken keyboard edge. This is really common in this model. And many of these have had the original keyboards replaced for this reason under warranty. I know I did about 100 or 150 of them so far for this reason, and they all broke again. So when you buy these used, they're rare to find them without broken edges. So we had the brightness key that was broken. It was the brightness up key, and interestingly enough, the F1 key next to it doesn't work. But the brightness, the F2 key that we repaired, does work. So let's take the F1 key off. Let's see what the hell's going on here. It looks like the rubber dome is broken. Let's take it apart even further. Let's see what the hell's going on with this one. Well, this one's never been repaired, but that particular key doesn't work. But you know something? As long as the brightness can go up, I don't care. So I'm not fixing it. I could pull the dome off and see if there's something stuck under there. But none of us use the F1 key for anything other than turning the brightness down. Given the nature of how this laptop is used, I don't really care. So that's going to just stay that way. And so be it. Let's try to get that back in place. So yeah, hard drive failures, backlight cables, optical drive failures were a big problem on the ones that were getting used, but most of these don't even have working drives in them anymore because people have stuffed everything under the sun into them. ID cards, gum wrappers, you know, I don't really care. They don't really use the drives because of how they're being used in real life. So what else? What else? Batteries. If your trackpad button doesn't work, if it's stuck, chances are your battery is swollen. And I see that happen on a regular basis. The batteries will swell, and they'll put pressure on the back of the trackpad assembly, and they won't work. Even if the battery still holds a charge for 3 hours, it can still happen. So keep your eyes peeled for that issue. The cases are remarkably durable. I don't see a lot of them breaking, and these get dropped, they get thrown about. This particular one has seen better days. It's actually twisted. It looks like it was probably dropped on this corner maybe at one point. It's even missing a screw. What a piece of junk. But anyway, oh yes, and this happens too. These right here, these fall off all the time. And my solution has been to pry them off of good cases, if I have a good case, and gluing them back on. I've actually done that about a dozen times so far. What I'll do is, if I have a junk laptop with the button still attached, I'll rip it off and glue it on the other one, making sure that it doesn't glue itself shut or open. And that's it. Saves me a lot of time from having to pull the machine completely apart to replace the lower case assembly. I'll often buy junk bottom cases just for that reason, because those little buttons are very, very hard to replace. Well, they're not hard to replace, but they're a pain in the neck, because when they do fall off, you got to replace the entire lower case. I think I just went in circles there. But other than that, these are probably one of the more reliable of the MacBooks. They really are. They're not a bad machine. I mean, they're ugly, but, you know. Oh yeah, one other problem. These display bezels. These pop off quite frequently. And the only way to get these back on again, there's only one way. You can't just pop it back on. You have to take it off completely. And you've got to rip off all of these. You're going to see a bunch of these in there. These get attached to the back side. I'm sorry, these are what the back side of the bezel clips into. And what you do is you rip all of these off the bezel when you pull it off with a flat blade screwdriver very carefully. And then you bend them slightly, and then you pop them into the display housing first. And then put some pressure on them to flatten them out, and then you can pop the bezel back on. Do not try to push one back on without doing that, because you will break it. I've had to deal with that hundreds and hundreds of times over the past 8 years. Okay, as luck would have it, it just so happens that today I got another laptop with the exact same problem, only in 2 places. The escape key, which I just finished repairing, and the right arrow key. A thought just occurred to me, when you're doing this, make sure you don't cut too deeply. I'm going to try to zoom in for you as much as I can. you can see that there is printed circuitry here, here, and here. You don't want to cut so deep that you actually cut through the second mylar layer, which contains the flexible circuit material. If you do that, the keyboard is now junk and you'll have to buy another keyboard. The other thing I failed to mention is that many people will wonder, well, why don't you just replace the whole keyboard? And the reason is cost. I have about 24 parts keyboards of all different generations, several of each. And why would I buy something if I can already fix what I have using parts from other keyboards? And the other thing is, all the keyboards that I have that are taken off the laptops, like this one here, these were damaged beyond repair due to liquid spills or other damage. Or the trackpads didn't work, or the buttons were broken, or they themselves had missing rubber domes, and they predated the time when I realized I could fix them. So I actually have boxes of these things kicking around. And the other thing I wanted to do is show you the difference between all three generations of the keyboard. This one in my hand, I believe, is actually the original keyboard. No, sorry. This is the third generation keyboard. It can be identified because it doesn't have the iTunes play, stop, rewind buttons on the function keys. There is a the first generation keyboard can be identified because it, okay, here it is. No. Let's see what I got here. This is a first generation keyboard. This one has the volume controls and the iTunes control buttons right here on the top. And it also doesn't have the numeric keypad icons. I could have these reversed. I think this one could be the first one. Let's see, 8607. We'll get rid of this one. 7624. That's a little confusing, but anyway. So these are the two major versions, and there's a third one that I believe was sold in other countries. Or it was like a mid model refresh keyboard, and I'll try to find that here. It's in here somewhere. Here it is. This key, no, wrong one. I found it here. It had a keypad protector on it, and it contained if I can lay my hands on it. Might be this one. No, it's not this one. Is it this one? Here it is. This keyboard has metal levelers on each key. These little metal bars that none of the other keyboards have. You can see there's one right there too. So that's just one of the other keyboards. I don't think I have many of these on my machines, but this one, just for the record, came from Hong Kong. It was purchased with a lot of used keyboards that were used as replacements in my shop, and they all had those little metal things on them, so there you go. Another trick I want to show you guys is how you can substitute certain keys for other keys, even though they're wrong. Well, this right arrow key is blank because I don't have any more right arrow keys. So I would have two left arrow keys, which could confuse people and piss them off. So what I do, in a case like this, I will use acetone to remove the lettering off a key if I need to substitute it for another key. Let me show you how that's done. So here I've got my test keyboard for you and a bottle of acetone. And what we'll do is we're going to put a little bit of acetone on a cotton swab. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this Q key and remove the Q so it looks like it could go anywhere on the keyboard. All you do is rub the acetone over the key. You may have to use a couple of Q-tips to do this right. If you do it well enough, you'll have a nice smooth key like I had with that. Yeah, I gotta renew my Q-tip. Now it's all coated in plastic. What acetone actually does is it dissolves ABS plastic. It's really good at that. It's better to do this on a junk keyboard before you pull it off, or do it on a flat surface. And then we're going to give it a nice polish, let it dry and harden. Now it just looks like a key with a letter worn off, and I can put it anywhere on the keyboard I need to. So let's say if I'm running out of R keys, I can just take any old key and put it in the R spot. I'm not going to bother marking it with a permanent marker. That looks cheap. Not that it looks cheap this way, but you know. Problem solved. So now I can use this key anywhere on this type of keyboard without having to worry about someone picking it off. And my Q-tip is all plastic coated. Yummy. So, a little bit of tricks here. Help you guys get a nice service life out of these laptops. And thanks for watching.